Hello, good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here, and today, before we get into the video, thank you guys again for getting the channel up and over 35,000 subscribers. As of the recording of this video, we're currently at 35,100, which is awesome. Now, like I mentioned in the last video that I brought up the subscriber milestone, today's video is going to be where we are going to start the giveaway for hitting 35,000 subs. If you don't care about the giveaway, you want to get straight into the list video, check the time bar. There are chapters, so if you don't care about getting a free tier 5 to 9 premium ship, go ahead and skip to the list if you so choose to do so. Again, chapters are down there on the timeline. But anyway, for those of you that do want to enter into this contest, very simple, works like how my past 4 or 5 giveaways have worked. What you're going to do is put your in-game name in a comment down below, along with your server and some type of witty comment. There will be an example of this in the description box. If I was to enter my own contest, which I can't do, it would just be like IGN, SealordMountbatten, server, NA, witty comment, just as simple as that, and there you are, you've entered into the giveaway. The way the giveaway goes is that I'm going to leave this video up for, well, forever, but the entries will be valid for 1 week, so starting from this Monday until next Monday, entries will be accepted. After that, it will be closed to entry, and then a bot will choose 5 comments over the next week, and for each day that the bot chooses a comment, you will be given a ship if you win. It will be a tier 5 to tier 9 premium ship of your choosing. It can be any of the ones that are available in the armory right now or the premium shop. If it's in the armory for dubs, but for some reason not in the premium shop, I'll give you the doubloon value of the ship. Or if you want to, you can get the doubloon value for whatever ship you want to get. Like if you want a tier 9's worth of doubloons, that's cool too. But again, from tier whatever to tier 9, that's cool. I can't quite afford to give away 5 tier 10 ships just yet. That's still a little bit too much. But from tier 2 all the way up to tier 9, those are up for you guys to choose from. And it'll be selected by bot. You'll get a message from me either in Discord or a reply on the channel. That's something you need to do include your Discord name in the comment section down below and join the SLM community server. That way I can reach you guys a lot easier. We've had some issues with that in the past where it took me some time to get to the winners, and the way that it normally goes, I give you 48 hours to respond to either my YouTube reply or a Discord message or a message in game. Once I've reached out to you, then from there I'll DM you and we'll go through the details of getting you your premium ship. So again guys, simply put your username, Discord name, join the SLM server, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because the bot will only pick from a subscribed person, and again, leave me a witty comment, something that'll make me laugh in the comments down below. Those of you that have been here long enough know what to do, and if you're confused in any way, shape, or form, again, a little example will be down in the description box down below. And it's my way of saying thank you to you guys for supporting the channel, watching the videos, and making this possible for me to do. Alright guys, so after that, let's go ahead and get into the video. As the title of the video states, today I'm bringing you an updated list of my top 5 OP ships. Now, some clarification and some explanation of why some ships that you might think are on here aren't going to be on here. I'm not including submarines for the time being because submarines are still in testing, and as we've seen, there's changes that they go from being mildly annoying to exceptionally overpowered with some changes here and there. Same with the super ships. Super ships have just come out, and they're probably still going to be changed quite a few times. If the super ships were on here, number 1 would be like the Conda, because the Conda is absolutely nuts. But again, I'm not going to include them here for the time being because they'll probably get toned down here in the future. It does take working forever sometimes to make these changes, but eventually they do make the changes. So with those 2 conditions out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the list. Oh, and these are premium and tech line ships alike. This is just overall most OP ships in the game. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into number 5, which, after speaking about ships being nerfed, is the Petropavlovsk. Now, the Petropavlovsk would be a lot higher up on this list if it wasn't for the big nerf that's coming to it in, I believe, 11.4. And it would probably be at number 1 if it wasn't for the very recent raising of its height. What I mean by that is that recently the Petropavlovsk has been raised up out of the water to where essentially about 50% more of its citadel is exposed to the open air and is no longer underwater. And its low ride height in the water is one of the things that made the Petropavlovsk one of the most absolutely nut ships in the game. And on top of that, its armor scheme was absolutely nuts. And its armor scheme is still essentially the same. What's happening to 11.4 is that her deck and casemate armor are being decreased by 10 millimeters. And that is an absolutely huge nerf for wargaming to do to a ship, which does certainly tell you how busted this ship once was. Now, what's that going to do to the Petropavlovsk is make it to where something along the lines of, I think, like 8 or 9 more ships are going to be able to penetrate its deck armor. It's going from 50 to 40 millimeters. So now the likes of Henri IV, I believe the Indomitable bombs, the Golden Lion, and all those ships, included, I believe, 4 or 5 more, will be able to penetrate the Petropavlovsk deck with their HE, which is going to quite severely hamper its survivability. Now, that being said, the ship in its current state right now, before this nerf, is still incredibly tanky. It sits a little higher up in the water, so you can citadel it a little bit better, but it's still an unbelievably tanky ship. And even after those nerfs to its deck armor, I still do believe it's going to be a fairly tanky ship. It just won't be able to sustain this insane duration of HE spam like it can right now. And why is Wargaming nerfing this ship so hard? It's quite simple. This ship is still everywhere and competitive. No matter what the mode, no matter what the tournament, if it's COTS, if it's some other tournament, if it's clan battles, there's always going to be a Petropavlovsk or some combination of Petropavlovsks on the team, because that's how good the ship is. Just in its survivability. I haven't even mentioned its utility or the guns yet. So let's go ahead and mention those. So for its guns, she has a really sweet set of guns. She has 9 200 and 20 millimeter guns with Soviet AP, with all the glorious Soviet AP shell characteristics. And this ship can the Citadel battleships from darn near its maximum range, even if you build into the range mod, because of, again, Soviet AP characteristics. Now, the guns aren't all that accurate. It's really not. Shooting at longer ranges is a bit of a roll of the dice with the Petropavlovsk, but good God, God help you if you get within 13 kilometers of this ship. It is going to just pin the ever-living crap out of you if you're not approaching it from, like, dead on from the bow, giving it absolutely no angles at all to penetrate your hull. Then it'll chunk your superstructure for like 5k a shot with its AP. The HE isn't that great on it. The HE is pretty anemic, but with the DPM, it still has a 12-second reload time, which that's with the reload mod on my Petropavlovsk. It can still, of course, deal with DDs and such with its HE if it needs to. Is it the best HE spammer? No, but it will eventually get the job done. It's not completely worth throwing away if you really do need to use it. So it's not like you can't use it. It's not that bad, as some like to make out. Then on top of that, too, you do have a 12-kilometer radar. Now, this is a fairly short duration radar. It's 15 seconds without building into it. So if you do build into it, you can maybe get it out to, I think the maximum time for its radar is like 25-ish seconds, and that's, again, heavily investing into the radar, which you don't really bring the Petropavlovsk to have a long duration radar. It's more like it's there in case you need it, if you need to scare a DD from getting out of the cap and get 1 or 2 shots off on it. If you want a longer radar, you'd bring something like the Moskva that also has a 12-kilometer radar but a much longer runtime. So those are just the highlights of what currently makes the Petropavlovsk OP. Again, after the most recent nerf goes through in 11.4, it's going to definitely tank the survivability a bit, but I still think this ship is still going to be absolutely everywhere and competitive until they really start tearing into the armor some more, or even raise it out of the water even more. Alright, going on down to number 4, we have the Tier 10 Pan-European Destroyer, the Smolensk. The Smolensk is one of my favorite destroyers. Why? Because it's easy for someone like me that's not very good in DDs to do well in, and that should tell you a lot right there about how good the Smolensk is. Also, the clip you're watching in the background shows off one of the better aspects about the Smolensk, which is its survivability. It's a Tier 10 destroyer that's meant for cap contesting and ambushing other destroyers. This ship is very good at taking caps and protecting them and murdering other DDs. One, because she has an absolutely nutty rate of fire. She has 4 guns of a 120mm caliber that reload, if you build into it, in 1.4 seconds. And that's before you have the skills like, what is it, Fearless Brawler, and then Adrenaline Rush kicking in too, which you can get that reload time down even more. On top of that too, things that further help her be a wonderful cap contesting DD, she has her surveillance radar that goes out to 7.5 kilometers, which is essentially her detection range. So basically, if you're in a cap and you get spotted, pop that radar, and like 9 out of 10 times, unless that DD is like right on the edge of your radar range, in that very slim gap in the mini-map between the radar circumference and your detection circumference, if they're not there, you're going to spot them. That's a wonderful skill to have when you're playing competitive or just in random battles when you're trying to take a cap. Then you can melt them down with your 120mm guns. Now, on top of that too, the heal comes into play because you can pretty much safely exchange health with any DD that you're going to run across because you have that heal. And yes, there's a fair few other tier 10 DDs that have a heal, but not as many of them has this combination of a heal, a radar, and these insanely rapid firing guns. And then you also get the emergency engine power engine booster, which is a 30% boost to your engine's top speed, but it is fairly short lasting compared to something like the French DD speed boost. This one only lasts for 60 seconds, enough for you to get out of a bad situation. If in the scenario, like if you're capping a cap, a daring pops up, and then you realize you can't win the fight, pop that, run away, and you're okay. Now, of course, the ship isn't all nutty. The top speed is a little low. It is a fairly large destroyer too, so it's not a hard one to hit by any stretch of the imagination, and it's really only fast when you have that engine boost going. So once that's down, you're a fairly sluggish destroyer, but this destroyer could absolutely just, a good DD player in this DD can absolutely just murder, I'd be willing to say 90% of other DDs that you run across in caps. The Forrest Sherman is probably the only one that can give it a run for its money because of the sap and the nutty DPM on that, but Forrest Sherman doesn't get a heal, but again, the Forrest Sherman is such a freaking SMG that it may not need one in that situation. But again, an absolutely nutty DD, one that's no longer available, but one that you still certainly absolutely see in competitive across the board. Alright, going on down to number 3, we have the Tier 10 Soviet light cruiser, everyone's favorite Soviet light cruiser, the Smolensk. So the Smolensk, again, would be higher up on this list before some changes got made to her. In particular, the changes, well, not really to her, but the global changes that came about with the Commander rework. If this was like OG 19-kilometer Smolensk, this would be like number 2, right behind the Petropavlovsk at number 1. But the Smolensk today is still quite a farmer's dream. You get on this ship 16 130mm guns that reload in 4.5 seconds. Now, you could get the reload on these guns a bit lower if you don't take the range mod, but instead take the reload mod. But since the Commander rework came out, cruisers can no longer build into the range using Commander skills anymore because AFT's gone from the Cruiser Commander skill tree. So you gotta take the module now for the range. If you don't, you have some quite sad range on the small links. But even taking the range mod and not the reload mod, you still will be absolutely burning the world down in the small links. So on top of having 16 guns that reload in 4.5 seconds, the smallest also gets her own smoke screen, which is something very nice to have in a ship that is this nutty. You have smoke that's active for dispersions in 20 seconds and is around for 89 seconds. So this ship is like ridiculously easy to burn stuff down in. The simple formula is just get in a spot where someone has to push into you, pop the smoke screen, and just farm away. You can do this in the open water too because she has hydroacoustic search, and that will warn you of any approaching torpedoes, although don't chill in that smoke screen for too long because your hydro will run out and the torpedoes will still be coming your way. But anyway, it's just such a ridiculously easy ship to just set fires in, start getting those 2, 3, 4 fires going in the enemy ships if the Poor fella doesn't have fire prevention. And this ship, back in its original state, was the bane of many a battleship's existence. 19 kilometer smallness was nuts, because the shells, again, are the Soviet shells with the Soviet characteristics, the good air drag, the good arcs, the good velocities, to where it's incredibly easy to land shots at 19 kilometers in this ship back in the day. Which means that now you only have a range of 16 kilometers, but it's still very easy to get shells on target on this ship. And good God, you set one fire, two fire, the poor battleship player pops their damage con. You just keep shooting, and eventually you're going to set 2 or 3 more fires, and you'll have the whole ship engulfed in flames in a few seconds. So yeah, Smolensk, one of the OG OP ships from back in the day, has since been removed, like the Smolensk, but it's still one that haunts my nightmares. Alright, going on down to number 2, we have everyone's favorite Tier 10 British battleship, the Thunderer. So the Thunderer, man, this ship is still just absolutely in like a dead heat for being the best battleship in the game, even taking super ships into consideration. What makes this Thunderer so strong is her main battery guns. Her main battery guns are probably one of the best set of main battery guns in this game, again, including the super ships' main battery guns. What makes them so good is that it simply doesn't matter what the enemy ship does, you can still do insane amounts of damage to them. Consistently, too. The clip you should be watching right now in the background of the Thunderer demonstrates this pretty well. There's an Ismo that sells out in front of me, and he sells out broadside to me. I have AP loaded. I chunk him for I think like 16 or 18k right off the bat. So he makes the right decision and turns away from my Thunderer and starts selling away. I go, okay, that's cool. I'm going to load HE and chunk you from like 8 to 10k a salvo. And this is in the Ismo too. Ismo's one of the better ships to be in if there's a lot of HE spammy ships in the match, because they buffed her central deck armor to where most ships can't get through that. The Thunderer can, because it's got 457mm guns that fire wonderful HE. But there's not a lot of superstructure there to hit, so in a battleship like the Thunderer that does have good HE that can pin the deck, you still got to hit the deck because there's, again, barely any superstructure on the Ismo. But since it's the Thunderer, it's got, again, 457mm guns with British BBHE and a 65% chance of causing a fire per shell, with 8 guns that reload in 22 seconds with excellent dispersion. Yeah, you really don't care, because you load HE, throw enough at the ship, it's going to get set on fire eventually, or it's going to die from the 10k HE alpha salvos that you're going to be sending down range. So again, it doesn't really matter what you do when there's a Thunder attacking you, short of running away from it, getting outside of its range, you're going to die quite quickly. Its AP is awesome. Its HE is awesome. And again, it's got a 22-second reload. Now, they did nerf it a little bit to where if you want to get longer range, you have to take the range mod rather than the reload mod, to where if you don't take the reload mod and you take the range mod, you have like a 26-second reload time, which is still pretty darn fast for a ship with 8 18-inch guns at tier 10 that, again, are still this good. So if you don't take the range mod, you're stuck with the build that I have. But this is still a very, very workable ship, because it's got great concealment, because naturally it's British, and it has to have, of course, cruiser levels of concealment. It's got a 12.3 kilometer detection range with the mod and the commander skill. And it has also, too, talking about its maneuverability, has a 10-second rudder shift time base. Again, there's a couple tier 10 cruisers looking at that with envious eyes. And it can still go 31 knots with the speed flag equipped. So it's a stealthy ship that's very maneuverable, that has god tier AP, god tier HE. Its only penance for being this good of a battleship is that it's got Conqueror's HP, but it doesn't get Conqueror's super heal. But she still gets an improved heal. To where, yeah, you can't print an entire new ship back, but you can eat a pretty good chunk of damage and still regenerate it back. It's kind of like a beefed up Warspite heal, if you will. So yeah, Thunderer still, if you're in this thing's gun sight, you're doomed. You angle out, they load HE, melt you down. You think they have HE loaded, so you try to be a little bit cheesy, get your full set of guns on them to retaliate. They got AP loaded, and you get chunked for, like, again, 15 to 20k. The ship's terrible to be on the receiving end of. Okay, before we get to number 1, we got a couple of honorable mentions real quick. First honorable mention is the Tier 10 American aircraft carrier, the FDR. Y'all remember when this ship first came out? Yeah, I don't want to remember that time either. This ship was everywhere. So the FDR, to you newer players that haven't had the fortune of being on the receiving end of an FDR, it's essentially comes down to this formula. You have a very large attacking squadron. Well, you have a very large squadron in general. Each plane carries an insane amount of ordnance. The torpedoes planes, I think they drop something like 8 torpedoes apiece. It's nuts. The rocket planes drop 32 rockets at once. And again, this is like with 2 planes attacking each time. And you get something like 14 planes on average between the 3 flights. So this ship has the ability to just do absolutely massive amounts of alpha damage with its squadrons. Now, the trade-off for that is that they're slow. They don't have a very high top speed, even with the engine booster going. They're very, very, very sluggish. It feels like you're turning almost a destroyer in the air with how sluggish these planes are. And they don't have any heals either. But of course, good CV players can make this ship go a very, very, very long ways. It doesn't seem to be as nuts as it once was. It may be that players are grouping up so much more now as a response to submarines and other CVs that ships like the FDR that have slow, sluggish planes eat more flak and lose more planes, but the ship can still do very well. I'm not a very good CV player. I was still able to do easily 110, 120, 130,000 damage in this ship, which is actually pretty low for the FDR. You put a good CV player in this ship, and they're going to go to town with like 200,000 damage, easy peasy, in the FDR. Next honorable mention is the Tier 10 American battleship, the Ohio. This is an uncomfortable truth one. The Ohio is a little nuts, and let's be honest, if it was a Soviet ship, most players would be screaming that it's broken and overpowered. Ohio has 8 457mm guns, very similar to the Thunderer in regards to that setup there. Again, like the Thunder, she has a pretty sweet reload time of 25 seconds, and that's without the reload module in that last slot. That is with the Artillery Plattering Mod 2 module in that last slot, the Special American Battleship module that decreases your dispersion by 11%. You build into the main battery guns in the Ohio, you've got an awesome set of guns here, because you get American Battleship AP, or American AP in general, thanks to the super heavy AP shells that the American ships get. And these shells slap. It's not uncommon for 1 or 2 of these shells to absolutely ruin a cruiser's day, particularly ships like the Des Moines and Salem in competitive. Good God, this ship just dunks on cruisers that aren't aware of their surroundings. Not to mention, too, that these guns also absolutely wreck other battleships and such. And I have my damage record currently in this ship because of those main battery guns. On top of that, too, the secondaries are also very, very, very nice. And not as nice as they once were, thanks again, Commander Rework, but they're still definitely workable, and she's one of the ships you can safely build into the secondaries and do well in. And she gets that fast cooldown time on her heal, and she gets that American improved damage con as well that runs for 20 seconds. During those 20 seconds, no other fires or floodings will get started on your ship. This ship is quite slow, however. She does have a top speed of around 28 knots with the speed flag on, and what keeps this ship from being absolutely outright broken in my mind is that her dispersion isn't quite as good as Thunderer's. It's still quite a bit of, I hope to RNG that my shells will land in the same area that I aimed at. It doesn't happen near as much as it does with Thunderer, and there's still those frustrating salvos where you, of course, bracket the ship and give the ship a nice wash more often than actually all 8 shells connecting, or a majority of the shells connecting. And that's what keeps the ship back from being outright just insanely broken in my mind. But this ship is very, very, very close to it. Alright, getting down to number 1, we have everyone's favorite Tier 10 historically accurate Soviet CV, the Nakhimov. So, the Nakhimov, I don't think I have to explain too much here about the Nakhimov, because I'm pretty sure everyone watching has been wronged by one. So, the Nakhimov, she is the Soviet Tier 10 aircraft carrier. And the Soviet CVs, if you don't know, they have a very unique attacking feature on their flight. all the planes in the squadron attack at once. So you have even more alpha potential than something like the FDR. It's nuts, the amount of alpha damage that this ship can do. She got slightly nerfed 2 patches ago. They removed one plane from, I believe, her torpedo and skip bomber squadron, so the planes in those wave went down to, I believe, 7 and 6. So you don't have quite as much alpha as you used to, but it's still absolutely just nuts what you can do with this ship. In the first stream when I played her, I think I did 138,000 damage in my first game in her. And that's me. I suck in carriers. But the Nakhimov is one I can certainly easily break 100k in. The skip bombers are absolutely just fantastic at murdering destroyers. Well, destroyers and cruisers. I was going to say cruisers there first, but even destroyers too. It's so easy to just one-line drop DDs on these dive bombers, and you just remove half their health just from taking the worst dispersion from the skips. Which, by the way, if you don't know, those 3 lines up on screen when I have the dive bombers out, those are where the bombs are going to skip at on the water. Each line down, the bombs get a little bit more accurate. And the first line is supposed to be terribly inaccurate, but it's still good enough to where if you just dump it right on a DD, they're going to eat probably half of them and lose half their health. God forbid they all connect on a DD on that first line. They're just going to cease to exist. The rockets have the same pins as the American rockets do, and again, you're shooting all of them at once at some poor surface ship, and you can easily do 18k with like 2 or 3 fires getting started on the rockets. The torpedo bombers, they are a little bit trickier to use than normal torpedoes because they have a very, very long build-up time to their arming distance, and they also are very slow. So you want to approach most ships from the front with these torpedoes and let your torpedoes go on maximum range, or like just before maximum, not maximum range, maximum accuracy, or a little bit just before maximum accuracy. You have this very tight fist of torpedoes that's going to hit the target and do like 24k in them. Yeah, and this ship is nuts. I'm sure more changes are going to come to it soon, but if we're excluding super ships here, this is probably the most broken ship in the game at the moment that I'm sure most of you will agree on. But hopefully that gets tuned a little bit sooner than later. As we all know, Wargaming likes to take their time when it comes to balancing changes. So guys, let me know what you guys think about the list in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to enter into the giveaway for the 35,000 subscribers milestone being reached. Again, I can't thank you guys enough for that. So hope you guys have a wonderful week. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 40,000 subscribers. Gotta get in the habit of saying that. That's really nuts to think about too, guys. 40,000 subs, dang. But anyway, guys, again, hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.